Hey there, and welcome to the end of week 2, or the beginning, depending on how you measure it, but this is the beginning of the project. So at this point, you have worked through the week's content, so you've watched any videos or read through this tutorial that were posted on the page, and you have learned about the fundamentals of CSS and defining styles for your HTML. And now you are ready for this week's project. So in your GitHub repo, in your project repo, check out week 2 CSS. And first read through the README to get an idea of what you're getting yourself into and the requirements and stuff. And this is kind of the entry point to this week's project. This is how most of the project is going to work. So read through this and get an idea of what you're going to do. But basically what's going to happen is you are going to pick out some text. Doesn't matter what the text is. It can be up to you. And then you're going to style it using CSS. So the way I would start is first, what I would do is look at what's already in the repo. And there's already some example code for you. So I've checked my repo out onto my desktop. If you are using Replit, then that's cool. Wherever you have put your repo, then go to week 2 CSS and open the files. I'm going to use Atom, but you can use whatever text editor you want. And okay, I've got the HTML, and I'm going to maybe open the whole folder here. This is one of the reasons I like Atom. Whatever. So I've got my files here. So I've got my index file, and you can read through this. It's using some HTML tags to define some content, which is the speech that's at the beginning of Star Trek episodes. I'm kind of a giant nerd, if you haven't noticed already. So that's the content that I have chosen by default. And then it has a styles.css file, which defines a element selector, a class selector, and a ID selector. Which are used in HTML to style it. Okay, so we have an understanding of the existing code, which is always a good way to start. Next, let's kind of open it up in the browser. So I'm just going to double click it to open it. And here it is. Maybe I'll make it a little bigger. So here's the rendered HTML, which has some text, and the styles that we have defined in styles.css are applied to create this effect here. So I've changed the font of every p tag. I've made a few of the elements bold and big, and there's one that I made red. So these are just examples. You can completely get rid of all of this and start from scratch. That's actually kind of what I recommend. Or you can use them as inspiration, whatever. The way I would do this is first I would think about what text you want to style. So I don't know, I should have maybe planned this ahead. What's another nerdy thing? So maybe the Twilight Zone intro text maybe. You can use whatever you want, your favorite poem, your favorite song lyrics, whatever. I don't know, is this right? Like I said, I didn't really do any research first. All right, so I think this looks relatively right, or it looks right enough for our purposes just to demonstrate it. So I would take some text from wherever you want to find it, maybe your favorite book or really anything, and I would get rid of what I have in here. I'll just backspace it, just delete it, and I would paste your content. And that's just going to be pure text if you have copied it in as text. So let's just look at what that looks like in the browser. It's not super interesting. It's just one big unstyled text block. So I would probably do something like split it up into p tags first. Maybe this kind of depends on your personal preferences and how you want to style your text, but I'm going to start with p tags. You can use whatever tags you want, and I'll go look at what that looks like now. So that's a little better. Now I have individual p tags. I already have some styling for p tags, so it's already applying them, but maybe what I would do next is, jump to styles.css and, what do you want your font to look like? I chose a kind of monospace font because I'm doing something kind of dorky, but you can play around with it. And then, I don't know, here are a couple of things that might come in handy. One is the span tag, which lets you style like kind of pieces of a paragraph. So I don't know, let's see, like maybe I want to style journey. So like span, and I can give it a class, whatever I want, maybe big in this case, because I know that I already have that style defined. So maybe I'll say span here. So span tag is kind of an arbitrary span of text. You can wrap it around whatever you want, and it won't like force it onto a new line or anything like it would if it was in a p tag. So that might come in handy. Another thing that might come in handy is the div tag, which lets you define like just an arbitrary rectangle. So maybe I'll wrap that in a div, and let's see what that looks like. So now I have the class that I have styled here, and maybe I'll just style the div real quick here. I'll maybe just use an element selector div, and I don't know, say border thin solid red, something like that, and I'll refresh. And there you can see that like I have drawn a div, or I've wrapped my p tag in a div, and I gave that div a border. So that can help you like group multiple tags together. So maybe I'll move the definition of the p tag down. Yeah, so now I have both of my p tags inside my div. My code is getting a little messy because I'm just kind of real quick show you like how I would get started, but the idea is that you can just use different HTML tags to style your text however you want. This is where I encourage you to get creative and choose whatever text is, personally meaningful to you, whether that's like funny or interesting, or is, I don't know, making a point or whatever. It's all good. The only sort of restrictions that I'm giving you are make sure that you do these 5 things. This is what I'm going to grade on, and so make sure that you include each of these these things. they're like an element selector, an ID selector, a class selector, and then 2 different ways of cascading. And make sure you have those before you submit, and it's all good. But other than that, I encourage you to get creative and have fun and just kind of play around with different styling rules and CSS tricks and stuff. So don't be afraid to research and use your favorite search engine. Check W3 Schools and MDN for all of the different things you can do, and have fun with it. And I look forward to seeing what you create. All right, enjoy.